Happy Wednesday! I'm excited today to share a special guest that I met several years ago, actually, at a little networking thing. And so excited to have Randal here. Hello, Randal.
How you doing?
Randal is from KCancer Softball. Tell us a little bit about your organization and what wonderful things it does.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, Cindy. So KCancer Softball is a nonprofit here in the Rockford area. It started here, and we work with childhood cancer families that are all through the state line area. So we consider that anybody that's within about 45 minutes of Rockford, we support. And what we do is we support childhood cancer families. We don't put limits on what it is. So every family has a different situation, and anything that they need that a need that's fallen through the cracks. And we always tell them, when you're sitting at your kitchen table and you're looking at each other and you're saying, how are we going to, that's when you call us. And then we dig in and we help. So that's the abridged version.
Yeah, that is a short version of what you do. So there's different aspects to your organization. Explain that, like why softball is part of your title.
Yeah, it's very different. So it started off, it's one of those stories where it came out of the air almost. So had a travel baseball team, 13-year-old baseball players, and we were wanting to talk to the kids and kind of point them to something other than professional baseball, because it is at 13 years old, every baseball player is going to be a pro, so he doesn't have to worry about a job or a career or anything like that. So that's the age where you want to start telling them, maybe you might want to have a backup plan. So me and a couple of the guys on the team worked in professional careers. So I had some conversations with some of the kids and just asking them, what do you want to do when you get older? Anything other than baseball? And we started hearing some things, like one kid wanted to be an entrepreneur and own his own business, and we tried to talk him out of that. He didn't know what he was saying. There was another kid that he wanted to be in finance, and then we had a kid that was interested in digital marketing, and at the time I was working in outsourced HR. So I just mentioned to him, you guys sound kind of like a startup company, and they wanted to hear a little more about that. So I had set up a day where brought him into a conference room at our church, and just in an off night in the summertime when we didn't have a practice, it was 4 boys on the 13-year-old baseball team, 1 older brother, and I did a class on what is a company, what's an S corp, C corp, LLC, why one over the other. And we thought they would, they'd get bored out of their minds, but it was the exact opposite, where they were firing questions at us, and we got done and they want to do it again. So that summer we kept doing these classes, just on off nights. And, we went over finance and branding and marketing and sales. And, at the end of it, we were talking to them and they wanted to do something. They wanted to start something. So, it was a really good opportunity to get these kids together thinking about something other than baseball. And, one of the kids had a cousin that the previous summer she had been diagnosed with cancer, and they'd spent quite a bit of time up at Children's Hospital in Madison. So they were kind of talking it over, and one of the other players on the team his grandmother had passed away with cancer, and the treatment was all here in Rockford because they have 2 just phenomenal cancer hospitals. So the question was asked, why did you have to go up to Madison? And it turns out, when we did a little digging, that if a family is diagnosed with childhood cancer, that they have to be treated by specialty pediatric oncologists. So that's out of the area. It's Madison or it's Chicago. So as you can imagine, that creates a whole bunch of problems, just associated with travel and logistics and all those kind of things. So what we did was we brought the kids together and we said, okay, here's a business plan. You've got a problem, and this is the way businesses are started every day. You found the problem. It's, these families have to travel out of the community for their treatment. Now you need to come up with a solution. And then once you come up with a solution, you find out, is anybody else addressing that problem? And if they are, is your solution better, cheaper, faster? If it is, you have a business. So, we took these kids through the exercise of doing some research and finding out, is anybody else in our community here locally in the greater Rockford area supporting childhood cancer families? And we found out there really wasn't. So there was a need. So then they started, doing some research and talking to the customer. And they interviewed, the player's uncle and his aunt and said, what was your experience like? What could have helped you? What problems do you know other cancer families would go through? And then, they took that and packaged it and said, travel is one of the big no-brainers. They really need some help there. Who's paying for this extra gas? Car repairs, things like that. So we took that and we worked with the kids, and these 13-year-old boys. They wrote the articles of incorporation, they wrote the bylaws, they helped construct the 1023 document to get their 501c3 status, which came in in the first try, by the way. And they started the company. And then we involved these kids in the board meetings, so they would be on the board, and we would table topics, and we'd kind of guide them, help them kind of come to the conclusion of like asset allocation. What services are we going to provide? All of those kind of things. We got them involved in the marketing, of the organization, running our social media platforms. So they really got their hands on the business. So what we thought was, since it was a baseball team that started this, why not use that natural tie-in? Baseball is a small community, but there are a lot of people who do it. So the team name for the travel baseball team was KCancer Baseball. So they would go to tournaments, and you'd see a kid on second base, and then the shortstop would walk over. Well, there's timeout, and he'd walk over and, well, what is KCancer Baseball? And then you would see the kid giving the elevator pitch. We're a local nonprofit, and they'd rehearse their elevator pitch, so they had the opportunity to share it, and so they really generated a lot of awareness, and it was really fun because the first year they raised, I think it was like $10,000, and we were real excited and far exceeded what we thought they would do. And then they kept pushing and kept building, and their skill set grew, and the next year was 25,000, and it kept growing. Yeah. So that's how it became KCancer Baseball. It was just some baseball players that started the organization, and we leveraged the baseball component to create awareness to the pediatric oncology situations that are happening, and really get the word out of what our families are going through here locally.
So it's almost taking, their passion they were passionate about learning about the process. And because somebody was touched by childhood cancer, that's kind of how it rolled into where it's at, right? That's the gist of it. So taking it forward, so now it's not baseball, it's softball, which I know the reason behind it, but our viewers might. And this part is what I think is super cool, on how you're making it go further, longer, and maybe not burn out some of the people that started it. So share how it shifted from the baseball to the softball.
So, when you say the kids, these boys helped write the articles of incorporation and the bylaws, it's easy to just kind of say that and kind of move on. Well, part of what they have to do in that process is they have to make some decisions on how their organization is going to be structured. And for a nonprofit, one of the really important things that you have to factor in is what happens when this thing stops being an organization? What are you going to do? So, for example, let's say you raise $100,000 and then all of a sudden, you're going to fold up your business. Well, as a for-profit company, like yourself or your consultancy, you have $100,000 of earnings and you stop being a company. Guess what? Those $100,000 are yours, and that's really why you do it. With a nonprofit, the term nonprofit is you don't keep the money. So what are you going to do with the money when you fold up? So they had to decide that early on. And so the decision, is the kind of the boilerplate is you would turn all your revenues over to an organization that does something similar to what you do. So the boys, were 2014, they were 13 years old. So you fast forward a few years, they've been doing this for a while. They feel great about what they've accomplished, and, they could stop it and it fold up and they could say, you know what, we really did some good for some people, really needed good done. Now let's move on to college. So we had a board meeting and we asked, what do you want to do? Is our bylaws say we have to give the money to someone else if we fold it up? That's option one. Option two is what? So we tabled that, and at the end of the day, the conclusion was, let's bring on a younger team that's 4 years younger than us. Let's kind of mentor them and kind of share what we've learned, and then hand the organization over to them so that they get the same experience we got And so the good that we're doing just continues on. So instead of just bringing on a baseball team, they're like, how about let's flip it over and let's bring on a group of girls and give them that opportunity. And so it was, we met with a couple different teams, and, you really got to be careful because you're turning your baby over to somebody. And so think about it, Cindy, you put 5 years into and congratulations, by the way, on that upcoming anniversary. So you've put 5 years of literally blood, sweat, and tears into it. And then you're just going to hand it over to just whoever says they want to do it. Like, absolutely not. So, we vetted a bunch of people. And at the end, we came up with a gentleman, Chad Norgard, who had a softball team. And it was supposed to be like they were supposed to be a part of this. So everything just matched up perfectly. Faith, systems, belief systems, everything. So we brought that team on, and the boys started to mentor the girls. And it was an interesting experience because what's really come out of this is, I asked business owners, especially small business owners, are you competitive? And they immediately grin. Of course they are. They're hyper competitive. How do you feel when you lose an account? It's just, I don't sleep for the next week, and I'm what am I going to do to not make? So you take these athletes, and once you get it across to them, like, here's another playing field to compete in, the light bulb just goes off, and they're like, okay, where's the reins? We're going to take this, and so the girls got involved, and they really dug in and really made it into something special. So now it's KCancer Softball.
And now these girls they've been running it or managing it for a while. Are they going to then in turn, is this process going to keep on rolling, like going back to the boys and then to the girls, or keep it with the girls, or at some point meshing? Does that even matter, just as long as this keeps rolling out and you keep helping people? Where's that process at, like the thought process of the future, where we're going with this?
Yeah, so that's that's one that we have really grappled with, and a lot of conversations have happened around that. So you start building up this traction and some awareness, and like the softball team, they've made a bunch of connections, and people are really kind of excited about the program and what we do, and they really carry themselves well on the field, and so they've got a good reputation. So do you continue to build on that and just keep expanding out? And then also, so imagine we went from KCancer Baseball to KCancer Softball. So now branding, and you might know a little bit about the challenge just to be associated with that. So you're letting some momentum kind of just taper off, and you're having to start it all over again and do the heavy lifting again. So we thought about it, like what we would lose from if we were a traditional for-profit business, we would just continue KCancer Baseball and keep rolling. Or we would continue KCancer Softball and keep rolling. So the girls are juniors and seniors now, and we're at that point where isn't that crazy? Yeah. It was just yesterday, you were in our conference room teaching a class on marketing to these little 12-year-old girls. Yeah. So now we're looking at, we've talked to several teams, and we've been going through that vetting process to bring a baseball team on, to kind of continue. And it was interesting. When we start the conversations with somebody, we always tell them this is either going to be an absolutely perfect fit, or it's not going to fit at all. Mm-hmm. And the first couple of teams we talked to, not at all. And we'd start explaining what we do, and it would just, go right over it, or it just wasn't what they were interested in doing. And then we recently met a group that we feel like it's going to be just a great fit. So we're real comfortable. This is the right team to bring on as the next KCancer baseball team. And the girls will, this winter, they'll begin that mentoring process. And then next year will be the girls' last year. And then they would hand over the reins to the boys. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. And so when I learned more about your organization, first of all, you came to the Million Cups group or whatever, and you spoke, and I'm like, I've seen that somewhere. And then I got angry because I'm like, oh yeah, it's a baseball, like somebody in our neighborhood is baseball, and I had no idea how it was tied. Yeah. And I came, but back up, the boys that presented, I was in awe of, because at that time I had, a daughter that was similar in age, and I'm like, there would be no way she would be doing this, so I was like, wow, they're on point, they're sharp, they weren't nervous, they knew their stuff, right on point. And then I was like, wow, how can I help get the word out because of what you do? And that's where we kind of chit chatted. And then I was able to have the experience of working with the girls. And you're right, their energy level was off the hook. And I just actually had in my stories pop up the experience, and I was asking them a question, and just all the interaction that we had. It was really fun. It was a special thing for me to be part of, and learning a lot more about your organization and a lot more about the girls that were running it. So it's almost, this is more important, I should say, than the actual travel baseball team. Obviously you play in baseball, but the impact that you're having in your community. And I think that's probably the difference of who you're looking for. Yes, they like playing baseball, but they also want to make an impact and finding that right match. So that's really cool. The other thing that I was really impressed with when you told me that the kids would go and ask for the money. And then they would get it every single time. And I think about that all the time. I'm like, man,
how do I get?
How do I do that? I mean, it has nothing to do with what they're asking money for, but but I mean, the life lessons that these children are learning, whether they want to be entrepreneurs or start an organization themselves or whatever, what they're building within themselves is far more than you can get just from playing a sport. And playing a sport on top of that is actually really cool too, because you're learning so much from that too. But I love the concept. I think it's super amazing. And I'm looking at it at the organization side, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The benefits that you have for these families that you're helping, and the impact that you're having is just almost the bonus of it all, right? And that you can, one, bring awareness to the lack of services, and I feel like one of the conversations we had in the most recent within, I don't know, the year or two, because everything meshes together, but is that you had excess amount of money and not enough families to help. And we know that childhood cancer is all around us. So getting that word out that you're there to help support however they need it, how small, even if it's just to lend an ear or financially. So what have some of the things that you've overcome to get the word out, get yourself out there, let families know that you exist? What have you done in the last few years?
It is kind of interesting. You mentioned the benefit of what the kids who are running the organization are getting. And then you look at, well, here's the good that's being done, and one's as good as, kind of thing. So it is really kind of interesting. I'll have people ask me, so what do you do? And I'm like, because, sales 101 is have your elevator pitch down to 30 seconds. So you can kind of get it. I'm like, which part do you want to know about? Because there's so many different components that go all at one time. And each of them, depending on who you are really important. So when we talk to a business owner and they hear about, they sit across from a 13-year-old who's doing a sales call and presenting a problem, then how they're going to be the solution, and then giving the business owner the opportunity to be a part of the solution, and then say, here's what we need from you, and just stopping and looking at them and just waiting. They're like, done. What do I love it. This is what we like to see. But what's really interesting is the two sides tie together. So the childhood cancer family support, and then what the kids are learning tie together. So what we do to get the word out, we feel like there's the numbers, or just the demographics say that there's 75 families within that greater Rockford area, the metro area, 70 within 45 minutes. that are in the middle of a fight of childhood cancer. And we support about 35 families locally.
Wow.
That support can range from, we don't want anybody inside. We just want to circle our wagons and get through this. So we'll just send gas cards. We don't need any interaction. You don't have to give us a Facebook post or a picture or anything. We will just mail you, gas cards to help with your trans or whatever your need is. All the way up to families that really get involved and they come out to our events and they love that interaction and the social network that's built. So if to engage with that other half that don't hear about us, it's literally because they haven't heard we're there. Childhood cancer is not something that you want to be aware of. If you have a child and there was a billboard right outside your neighborhood that had a picture and it said something about childhood cancer, you could drive by that for a month and not know it's there because you'll block it out as you drive by. So, the kids in the organization that have been doing some of the business classes, we look for opportunities from them after they've gone through our public speaking classes and our communication classes. We look for opportunities for them to get the word out. So social clubs, like, we've really had some just great support from Cherry Valley and Rockford East Rotary Club has been phenomenal. A couple of the local Kiwanis chapters have allowed us to come and speak at it. We're Good Morning State Line next week. We'll have a couple kids on there. We'll get opportunities at our events where, news reporters will come out and they'll cover our events. Well, when they do, here's who you need to speak with, and I'll hand them on to one of the young ladies, and they'll share the information. They'll tell the story. And, it's a great opportunity for them just to kind of get that exposure and the learning. But then the community is hearing the story, and then somebody will see it, and they'll know a cousin who has a daughter who has a child who is just diagnosed with cancer. Mm-hmm. And that's, so their activity and then the stuff that they're doing is really helping to get that word out, so that, if somebody hears about us, they just know somebody's there to support them.
Yeah, that's incredible. The one other question I have for you is, I just spaced it. Oh my goodness. Let me have a drink. I didn't write it down.
I know what it was. How did that lady from Cindy Rowe Marketing help?
No.
When you mentioned that, though, that is a really important aspect of what we do. So we're 100% volunteer. There are no paid staff in our organization. We get a budget, and the money we get coming in, the families that we support. A lot of people think just negatively about people in general, and they're pessimistic, and they say, people are just going to try to take advantage of it. It's exactly the opposite. Mm-hmm. The families we support, we'll do something for them financially, and then we won't hear from them for a little while. And then we'll reach out and how are things going? And then we find out, not so bad. This issue's coming up. And we're like, well, why haven't you reached out to us? Well, you guys have helped so much. We didn't want to go back to you again. So it's exactly the opposite, where people don't want to take advantage, so they're more hesitant to take the money. Well, it's the same way with our budget with how we get this training. So I have certain things that I'm good at, and I'll leverage that training. When we first did our first class with the boys, I look around the room, and the 4 boys who were there, one of them, his dad was a vice president of operations at an international company. I'm like, we know who we're going to for that. The other one, his mother just happened to be the development at a major nonprofit in town. So she's the fundraiser for them. Like, we know who we get, And then another one, he was a retired sheriff from Boone County. So, he had this vast expertise in this one area. So we leveraged each of them. They brought what they had as far as skill sets to the table, and then they taught classes on it. Well, then we looked and what holes do we have? Well, marketing. Well, we just happened to run into somebody who runs their own marketing company. And then we reach out and we're like, is there any way this would be such a big help? And then, I look at it from a professional's perspective. If I had a group reaching out to me, and the time commitment, while it's not nothing, it's not, incredibly onerous, where they teach a 2 or 3 week class where it's one class on a Monday for 3 weeks in a row, and it'll be an hour and a half. So you've put 4.5 hours into this group, and you've just opened their eyes to a whole industry, and and you might have just lit that fire under a future professional. I'm like, what what a great investment of time is that? So, having concerned and, just good quality business people in our community that see the community as something they want to invest in, that's what makes things like nonprofits really work.
Yeah. And I was just fired up because I thought the concept was amazing. Like, just the fact that these children were learning how to run an organization, and they were helping the community and, helping children just like them that, had an ailment. So like, it was a no-brainer to get involved. And I've always, been very eager to help however I can going forward. So that won't change. I did remember my question. So somebody has a passion about something and they feel it deep inside that they want to start an organization, a nonprofit, or do something other than thinking about it. What kind of words of wisdom, advice, what would you give them? I mean, you guys have been, how long has KCancer been around?
Since 2014.
Okay. So you've been around for a while, 7 years, and like, you've had those ups and downs, those growing pains or whatever, but if you could roll it out in a few tips or bullet points of, what you need to do to get started, or how to take that passion and move to do something, what would you tell these people?
So I get asked pretty regularly that question, and I talk more people out of starting companies than anyone I know. I mean, I'm worse than a banker. It starts with, can you sleep at night? So if you can sleep at night, you don't need to start a company, and you don't need to start a nonprofit, because I literally could not sleep when the idea was forming and we're thinking we might start something. I was so excited about it, and I thought about it all the time. I have a friend who's thinking about starting something, and they work in the medical field, and they're like, my one concern is that I might damage somebody while I'm doing a medical procedure because I can't get my mind off of this. So that's the first litmus test of should you start something is there a cause that you are so passionate about that you can't sleep? That's the first and number one thing. And then, does it drive you just insane? Is it like not acceptable that nothing's being done? And do you look around at everyone else and say, why aren't you doing something about it? If that's the case, then you might need to start a nonprofit. And then the way it starts, so I had a conversation when I was going through that phase of things where it was just on my mind all the time. And we had like a class or two with the kids. And like, I'm starting to think this might be something. I had a conversation with Joe Kyrgyz. He runs Generator, the accelerator up in Madison. Mm-hmm. And at the time, it was a small accelerator. Now it's just wildly successful. But I was just kind of mentioning it to him. And he goes, start it. And if it's supposed to happen, the things you need will come in your life right when you need them. So that's exactly what we did. We just started it. And if it's supposed to happen, it'll happen. I had two examples of that. Early on, one of our first meetings was at, I think it's Williams Manny Insurance in Rockford. I think that's the name of it. But we had a meeting with someone from the actual insurance company, and the boys presented. And at the end, they got a small check from them. And we had a conversation in the parking lot earlier. What we really need? We need to talk to somebody in government and kind of get government's perspective on what we're doing and the problems of childhood cancer. So like the day before. And then we had this meeting and we finished, and then, the guy's going to give a check and everything. He goes, have you met your senator? And we're like, we just kind of look at each other like, this is creepy. And he's like, come on. And he takes us down and he introduced us to Dave Severson. And he opens his door, he lets us come in, and the boys basically presented while they're standing in his office for about 45 minutes. And that started just a great relationship where he has been very helpful to us and opened some doors for us. So that's like one example of what you need will come when you need it. I'm up in our conference room at Bison where we store a lot of our stuff, and we used to do the training. Remember where you taught the classes?
Yeah.
And I'm up there one night. It's like a Friday night at like 10 o'clock at night. And I'm stacking some T-shirts on shelves, and I look across the room, across the table where we do the training, and there's this big empty wall. And I'm like, we really need a screen there for when we're doing our classes. And right when that thought bubble went above my head, I get a text message, and it's from Pat Fong, who's a trust fund manager at Midland Bank. And Friday night at like 10 o'clock. And she's like, hey, Randal, could you guys use a screen in your conference room? And I'm like, I call her right. I'm like, Pat, I'm going to send you a picture. Like, you will not believe this. So they were retooling their conference room at work, and they needed to get rid of the screen. And the CEO asked if anybody knew a nonprofit needed one. So like, as we've needed things, we just got started, and just do your best to try to address the problem you got. And then what you need just has a way of coming there if it's meant to be.
Right.
If it's not, you'll know very quickly.
I love that. Yeah. And I feel like that's very true in my business too. Things come to you when you need them. So great words of wisdom. I appreciate that.
The other side of that is, don't let the fact that you don't know how to start a nonprofit. I've never started a company, never started a nonprofit. You go to the Secretary of State's website, and there's, how to ramp up a nonprofit. You'll have all the information. And then when you tell your story, if it's compelling enough, you'll have experts that will come in and kind of help fill in the gaps for you.
Yeah. Well, at the end of every show, I like to give you the opportunity to promote upcoming things that are happening or whatever. But before I do that, Stacy commented, and I put it up earlier, but I didn't mention it. So she said, what a fabulous organization for our girls on the team and the local cancer community. So thank you for sharing that, Stacy. And then go ahead and tell us all about how we can find you, what's coming up, all that good stuff. And I have your website and Facebook I'll post too. So the floor is yours.
So September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. And this is the opportunity for us just to kind of really highlight some of the issues that are facing childhood cancer families. And through the month, we're really active on social media. So one real way you can help is follow our social media. So KCancer Softball on Facebook, our website of strikeoutchildhoodcancer.org. And we'll provide information on, statistics throughout the month on some of the kids that we support here locally and some of the challenges they're facing. On September 1st, we kick off that month with a day of prayer and fasting. So this is something that all the families we support ask us for. Just pray for our kids, pray for their doctors, pray for our families that we can just get through this. So if you go to our Facebook page, there's information on that. September 2nd is a lot of fun. In the evening at the intersection of Mulford and East State Street, we're going to have our fire truck pull and fun fair. So we have games, prizes, some bouncy houses, and then we have a fire truck pull competition. It's the Rockford Police Department has a team, and then the Rockford Fire Department has a team. And they see who can pull it the fastest, and it's a big fundraiser for us. And our cancer kids get to get up in the fire trucks, and they're yelling and screaming as the teams are pulling. So it's just a lot of fun. So that's on the evening of September 2nd, and information for that is on our website as well. And then one big one. So as you can imagine, kids who are facing childhood cancer battles, blood transfusions, bone marrow transfusions, it is a major part of treatment, and it's a necessary evil. We're doing our part during September. On September 18th, we're doing a blood drive here locally at Rhyme has an office on East Riverside, and the blood drive will be there at that Rockford office. And our goal is over 10 days to get 100 blood donors. So 100 blood donors. So if you come to our event on September 18th, and all that information is on our Facebook page, or if you just go into one of the Rockford Blood Bank locations within that 10 days and just tell them you're with KCancer Softball, it'll count towards our 100 guests.
We'll make that 99 because I signed up. I was supposed to give blood, I think, last week, and I postponed it so I could participate.
Awesome. And if you're out there and you think like, hey, I will pass out at the site of needles, please come, because that'll provide us some great content for our social media platform.
And it's funny because I've been giving blood for several years, but the very first time I was really nervous, and I thought I was going to get sick because I don't mind needles. I just don't like blood. And so they have something on my record that says cover the tubing with paper, so I don't see it. I'm like, I'm fine giving it. I don't want to see it coming out of my body.
I'm the exact opposite. I want to watch it go from that needle, and I want to see it as it travels along.
So yeah, several ways that you can get involved and check you out. And on your website, if people feel obligated or not obligated, but moved to donate to the cause, there's a way that they can donate. I mean, I don't know.
There's a donate page, and one big thing about our donations is we have one sponsor that covers our softball and our operation expenses every single year. So literally every dime that we get in donations goes directly to a local family battling childhood cancer.
That's amazing. That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing the story and how it all got started. I love it. I tell it all the time to people because I think the concept to me is just amazing. It's on point, and as an entrepreneur, it gets me all fired up and excited. And yeah, so and what you guys do in the community is great too. I'm not passing that by. I just get, as the entrepreneur part, it gets me really excited what you've done and how you've helped these children learn those special tools and also using their heart and passion to help others. So there's so many wins.
On the other side of it, as we're, exposing like the young ladies at KCancer Softball to female professionals in our community, they're watching. Mm-hmm. And they're going to be those professionals one day. And when they look at their community, they're going to be more likely to contribute and to lend their skills to it because they've seen the generation before. Not saying that we're old, but they're going to be able to look back and say, who was that one lady that used to help us? She did, so I guess I should. So just that example that you set as a business owner that's giving your time, we appreciate that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you again. And everybody, thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions and you're watching this after, just type in replay and we'll make sure that one of us gets in touch with you. Thank you so much. Have a great day.